Hi, friends. Welcome back to First Church of God. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, if you've ever flown on an airplane, after you've gotten in, you put your luggage up above and you find your seat, and everybody else is on the plane. They shut the door and they're taxiing out of the place at the airport. Well, the airport steward or stewardess, they will take their place in the aisle, and they start giving instructions about that aircraft. They want you to know what to do in case of an emergency. Now, I'm beginning to think maybe that's not a bad idea to start doing when I go on a trip with my family in the car. The front passenger, the driver gets in their position, and the passenger in the front turns around and tells everybody, hey, buckle your seatbelt, hold on. Tell us if the car gets to an accident, the airbags will be deployed. It's important that you sit up straight. Don't put your feet on the dash or any place else because you might get hurt. You might find your legs in a place that they don't belong. And you'll be in pain for the rest of your life. If the driver suddenly, the person in the passenger says, if the driver suddenly slams on the brake, please refrain from screaming or panicking or gasping for air, as the reason is probably another driver's fault or an animal in the road. I feel if you are flying on an airplane, you really ought to give the flight attendant your attention, no matter how many times you've flown. They are telling you this in case of an emergency. Now, we hear about plane crashes on the news, but they really don't crash that often. In fact, it is said it is safer to fly in an airplane than it is to walk across the street. A flight attendant won't do this, but maybe they ought to watch to see who's listening and who's not. And if those that are not listening, they're talking, they're playing on their phone, whatever they're doing, it comes time for them to hand out a snack or do something, ought to ignore them and just move on. They're not going to do that, but just a thought. I read a story years ago about Muhammad Ali. He got onto an airplane and the stewardess said, sir, you need to buckle your seatbelt. He said, Muhammad Ali, Superman doesn't need a seatbelt. And the stewardess says, Superman doesn't need an airplane either. Click. The flight attendant is going to tell you something that you should know how to do. Buckle your seatbelt. And they point to the emergency exits. They tell you that you can't smoke or vape or anything like that on the airplane, even in the restrooms. And if you do in the restrooms, you're going to be in big time trouble. They talk about the plane, if it has to make a water landing, that there is a flotation device and this life jacket you can put on and it inflates itself. And then they say, should the cabin pressure drop, an air mask will fall down out of the ceiling. Put yours on first and then help somebody else. This is how you put it on. But help yourself first and then take care of the next person. Why do they say it that way? Why not want to take care of everybody else? Because if you don't get it on soon enough, it'll be too late for you to take care of anybody else. They say put it on your face and breathe naturally. In other words, breathe the best as you can as everybody else around you is panicking. And they also say put it on yourself and then on somebody else. For many, their instinct would be, I've got to take care of others first. But in this situation, the airline believes if you won't take care of yourself first, how could you take care of somebody else? And as I think about putting the mask on myself, I think of that as being think of that whole mask thing as generosity. Generosity shows that we are more concerned about someone else's need or needs, and we want to support them, but we don't need anything in return. Remember David who killed Goliath? David the shepherd, David the giant killer, David the harp player, David the peeping Tom, David the warrior, David the king. Now, he had a lot of titles, but one title that meant a lot to him was friend. 1 Samuel chapter 18, starting at verse 1, it says, after David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with the tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. If you go to 2 Samuel chapter 1, after Saul and Jonathan had been killed in battle, David grieved for Jonathan like a brother, like one would grieve over their lover. They cared greatly about each other. Their relationship was as close as two people could be. And I think this is amazing friendship, considering how crazy Jonathan's dad was. On multiple occasions, psychotic Saul attempted to kill David, and many times Jonathan sent a warning to David to say, watch out for my dad. Now there's a key word in verse 3. It says, Jonathan made a covenant with David. Most every translation and paraphrase of this verse uses the word covenant. It's a very powerful word, more powerful than agreement, more powerful than promise. If married people would see their marriage as a covenant rather than a contract, they might do things differently. In a wedding, we often use the phrase, until death do you part. That's a covenant language. It means that I'm agreeing into this, and the only way out of a covenant, especially biblical covenants, is by death. Contracts are made because two people don't trust each other. Covenants are made because there is a mutual trust. The giving of the robe, the tunic, the sword, the belt, and the bow were not just cheap gifts. Those were top of the line. They were his personal things, probably passed down from his dad. Jonathan understood generosity is the extremely appealing quality. When someone gives to others with no strings attached, it really makes them feel special. Someone once said, the most satisfying thing in life is to have been able to give a large part of oneself to others. Being generous, it's not a matter of how much you have or how little you have, it's a mindset. Those who give with no strings attached usually exhibit a couple of characteristics that we might consider for ourselves. First of all, there is this abundance mentality. Those with a scarcity mindset believe that in life there's only a limited supply of anything to go around, whether it's money, resources, opportunities, or other things. And if you have an abundance mindset, you believe there is more than enough to go around. That God owns it all and that God is the God of abundance. If life were a pie, everyone would be helping themselves to the pieces, and the solution of the person with an abundance mindset, I'll just make two pies. We are either takers or makers. Takers are those who take, grab, consume whatever they can to meet their own needs. They see life as a rat race. But here's the problem. If you win, you're a rat. Only giving if getting something in return isn't a gift. It's a down payment. Makers are people who give of their time, their talent, their treasure, their touch. They create to make things happen. They are just as likely to give as to take because they are continually helping to create more for everyone else. Here's their life verse. It would be Philippians 2, 3, and 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others. Generous people are the most mentally stable people you can meet because they believe that if they give, they won't run out of resources. They trust God to provide all that they need. Henry Nouwen said, when we refrain from giving with a scarcity mentality, the little we have becomes less. When we give generously with an abundant mentality, we will give away with what we give away will multiply. If you believe in abundance, that is what life gives you. But if you believe in scarcity, then that's what you will get. I've often said that our attitude affects our altitude. And if we desire to become more generous, we've got to change our thinking and we've got to change our attitude when it comes to abundance. Not only will it allow you to become more generous, but it will also change your life. Here's the second thing that we need to do. We need a wider view. I've often said, never forget those who helped you get to where you are. Thanks, Mom and Dad. We need to be grateful for those people. And then we need to do like them. Maybe it was the encouraging note, the hand up rather than the hand down. Maybe it was a financial gift. Maybe it was just some transportation. But those who give with no strings attached are usually aware of those who help them get to where they are. They remember they are standing on the shoulders of those who brought them to where they are. Think about your church and your church family. Everyone before you worked, sacrificed, and probably even cried without even knowing you. They thought beyond themselves. There was an older man walking along this lonely road. It was starting to get dark and cold, and he came to this very wide, deep chasm. And when he finally got across, he turned around and he started building a bridge. Another traveler saw him and said, "You're wasting your time, talent, and treasure. You should go and get to where you're going. You won't be coming back this way." The older man stopped, looked at him, and said, "I know, I won't be back this way, but there will be younger ones who will take this path. The wide, deep valley wasn't hard for me to cross, but it might be for them. I didn't build this bridge for me. I built it for them." To be more generous, I think we need to have a bigger view. And when we realize that what we have is due to the kindness of others and the generosity of God, it is easy to be more generous with our time, our talent, our treasure, and our touch. I believe kindness and generosity walk hand in hand. And I think that there's a third person in the party, and that is gratitude. A heart that goes out of itself gets larger and full of joy. We do the most good when we do things for others, when we give with no strings attached, not looking to see what we will get, we gain something in return. Being generous affects our mental health for the good. Hoarders are hateful and generous are glad for what they have done. If you want to be generous, think about a few things. There's lots to it. Love beyond yourself. That's my letter L. Love beyond yourself. We're going to be known for our opinions, but we're going to be remembered for our love. And we can love without giving, but we cannot give without loving. Forget about scarcity. We need to focus on the abundance of God. One day Jesus was in the temple and the people were all gathered around. They were passing by, dropping their offering into the treasury there. And there was this widow, and she came. She didn't have hardly anything. She dropped her 2 small coins, all that she had, into the offering. Jesus said she gave more than anyone else because she gave from her scarcity and everybody else gave from their abundance. As Americans, we are people of abundance. If you own a car, you have more than a lot of people in the world. If you live in a house, you have it better off than people in other countries. If you ate, you have eaten more this morning than some people will eat all day, maybe even all week. If you have shoes, clothing, a home, you have more than a lot of people do. It's a mindset. Speaking of mindset, I think letter O, open your mindset. The mindset, I never have enough, is a terrible mindset. It's known as a fixed mindset, but it's broken. Jesus said, Matthew chapter 6, verse 25, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor nor spin. Yet I tell you that even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the fields, which are here today and tomorrow thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things. And your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, but tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Letter T, trust God. trust God. Generosity is based on our trusting God. What are 3 to 5 things in your life that you've seen God provide, or where he has shown himself trustworthy to you? Look at what the Message Bible says, Jeremiah chapter 17, starting verse 5. It says, "Cursed is the strong one who depends on mere humans, who thinks he can make it on muscle alone and sets God aside as dead weight. He is like a tumbleweed on the prairie, out of touch with the good earth. He lives rootless and aimless in the land where nothing grows. But blessed is the man who trusts me, God, the woman who sticks with God. They're like trees replanted in Eden, putting down roots near the river, never a worry through the hottest of summer, never dropping a leaf, serene and calm through droughts, bearing fresh fruit every season." So ask this question of yourself: how deep are your trust roots in God? Are you a tree or are you a tumbleweed? Tumbleweeds, they don't have deep root systems, so they just blow and they cast their seeds of more weeds along the ground. Letter S, start now. Start now. Ecclesiastes 11:4 says, if you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never do anything. Do your giving while you're living so you'll know where it's going. That's my mother's advice, and I think she's right. I've seen more families split and fight over what someone has left behind than anything else. Remember, we can't take it with us. So let's do our giving while we're living so we know where it's going. Today's message isn't because our church is in financial trouble. It's because I will be held accountable for what I teach and what I don't teach. If I don't teach about stewardship, you will not be held accountable to God for that, but I will. If I teach on stewardship, I won't be held accountable. You will. And when you give to the church, if you're giving cash, if you want a giving record for what you've done, please put the cash in one of the envelopes on the table and write your name on there. Then we keep a record. We give it to at the end of the year. Now, earlier I used the story about a man who built a bridge so others could cross. All of us needed a bridge. God sees that need because sin separates us from God. And here's the good news. Jesus, when he died on the cross, he became that bridge for us. Romans 10:9 says, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Jesus modeled giving by giving himself. Let's be giving giving of our time. Being here on Sunday and being available to help others, that's giving of our time. Give of your talent, your abilities that God has given you. You look at the life of Jesus. He didn't stop and ask permission to love others. He just did it. Give of your treasure, your financial income. Set aside the part first that you're going to give to God before you pay any bills or go eat or buy groceries or anything. Set aside what you're going to give God first. Put him first. Proverbs 3:9 says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best parts of everything you produce. And then give of your touch. Romans 12:5, rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. You are the only Jesus some people will ever meet. And how you treat others is a reflection of the relationship you have with God. We can say, well, I don't have it. I don't have anything to give. Yes, you do. True wealth is not measured in dollars and possessions. It's measured with the relationship somebody has with God and with others. Until next time, have a blessed day.